Right. Well, thank you. A little bit about my background before I go into the presentation. I've served as a health professions advisor on the Davis campus for approximately 5 years before moving over to the School of Medicine. And in December of this year, I'll be celebrating my 19th year as Director of Admissions for the medical school. So if you do the math, that's given me close to 25 years of working with pre-med students, but more importantly, giving me a wonderful opportunity to work with the deans of admissions, the faculty members, admissions committee members, and learning from them what they value as to be the qualities, the skill sets, and you know what helps them make decisions as it relates to the more competitive applicants to medical school. So starting with my presentation, I'm just going to go over the basics, the pre-med course requirements, medical school admissions test, letters of recommendations, the application, secondary materials, interview, and the admissions decisions. And we pretty much follow the same process for all medical schools. What's interesting for UC Davis and unique for UC Davis School of Medicine, we're probably the only, at least I know, the use of the 5 UC medical schools that there's actually a faculty member or an admissions committee member that reads all of the applications. Not one person reading all of the applications, but we do have a team of individuals that read all of the applications, even those whose applications don't make it through the initial computerized screening process. So there's a lot of labor that goes that's involved with that process, but we want to make sure that an individual, a human being, actually reads the applications before making final decisions. With regards to the pre-med course requirements, pretty much the same as all the medical schools. UC Davis is unique that it continues to have a 1 semester, 2-quarter upper division advanced biology requirement. So these are specifically courses in biochemistry, genetics, molecular cell biology, will fulfill that requirement. So again, it's 1 semester or 2 quarters, and it has to be upper division, so it must be completed at a 4-year college. We do require the medical school admissions test. Strong recommendation to take the test the spring before you submit your application. If you should decide to take the exam during the summer, July and the early exams in August are recommended. The later exams in August and September, I strongly feel, are probably too late for that admission cycle, and recommend that the individual postpone their application to the following year. We are on a rolling admission basis at Davis, meaning that the admissions committee reviews the files as they are received and complete, including the MCAT scores. In fact, this year, we were able to begin our interviews the 3rd week of August. So as you can see, people who wait to apply later in the summer and take the MCAT later pretty much lose out to having those initial decisions for secondary applications and to be interviewed early. And our hope is next year, now that we have a full team of faculty members who are ready and able to screen applications, to probably get even started earlier and hopefully start interviews at the early part of August. So that's why it's critical to submit your applications early, to take an early MCAT, and have all of those materials ready to go. And that follows along with letters of recommendation. UC Davis School of Medicine recommends a minimum of 3 letters to a maximum of 6 letters of recommendations. We should have 2 letters at least from science professors, but also less science professors that you've worked in their laboratories as a research assistant, but letters also from employers, service organization coordinators or advisors are appropriate as well. It's not the source of the letter that's important to the admissions committee, but it is the content of the letter in terms of how well do the individuals know you in the classroom, outside of the classroom, as it relates to a particular activity. the admissions committee is looking for information about the whole individual. So, example, if you took a biochemistry course in winter quarter and you got an A+, and that's all that the letter writer has to contribute in the letter, that's pretty much considered a throwaway letter for the admissions committee. But if you have that same faculty member talk about his or her knowledge about you in the classroom, active in the discussions, helping out in the lab sections, attending review sessions, and contributing to the conversations there, helping out classmates in the classroom. That's the kind of information that the admissions committee is looking for from a science professor, as well as what activities are you involved in outside of the classroom. So that letter needs to be all-inclusive from anybody that you have that to support your letter of recommendation, your application to medical school. So a minimum of 3, a maximum of 6. Yes, our medical school will accept committee letters from those schools that will write a committee letter for an applicant, but we also value individual letters from letter writers as well, okay? Letters of recommendations need to be current, meaning they should reflect the year that you're applying. Any of you that are re-applicants, not successful in the past, you need to get brand new letters of recommendations or updated letters of recommendations. For our admissions committee, I've noticed for the past several years, an old letter, a letter that's 2 years old or older, even sometimes 1 year old or older, that could have been updated by the letter writer, is a red flag and a death sentence for an applicant. So you want to make sure that your letters are current and they reflect, current information about what your accomplishments. AMCAS application. Our application deadline is October 1, so our AMCAS application deadline just passed, which was Monday, October the 3rd. I do recommend that you get your application in early, again, because we're on a rolling admission basis, and again, because our admissions committees are ready to go as soon as we receive verified and completed applications from AMCAS. And once we receive an application, we can send you a secondary application immediately the same day if your application passes the computer screening and after it's been uploaded into our system. Other applications may take a little bit longer because they go through the individualized review process, but you can receive our secondary application the same day we receive your verified and completed AMCAS if everything falls into place. Secondary materials. Our secondary material consists of four essay questions, excuse me, information about your clinical experiences, experiences that you felt were important in terms of your motivation to apply to medical school. We do ask for reference information, whether it be a telephone number, email address, comments about your experiences, why that was an important experience for you. We ask you to enter the prerequisite courses that you completed to fulfill our pre-med requirements. At Davis, we're unique that you can be offered an interview if you haven't completed the requirements, but no one will be offered admission to our medical school until all of the pre-med requirements have been completed. So the admissions committee suggests that all pre-med requirements for our Davis students who received a secondary, Davis applicants receiving a secondary complete all their pre-med requirements by January 1 of the admission cycle, okay? And if you wait until winter or spring semester or quarter to complete a requirement, even if you're interviewed in December and you're not going to complete those remaining requirements until the spring or winter or spring, and the admissions committee wants to offer you admission, we won't until we receive a grade report or a transcript from those schools. And by the time winter and spring quarter usually arrives, our class is already filled. So the best you would do is getting on the wait list. That's why it's important to complete those pre-med requirements as soon as you can. Interview. Here it says September, and as I said, we started in August, and it will complete through March. We're one of the few schools in the nation that is now using the multiple mini interview process. Many of you have heard about it. Maybe you've gone through the internet and read about it. If not, rather than the traditional 45-minute to 1 hour meet with a faculty member, members, or a medical student answering a series of questions, our applicants in the MMI will have 10 stations. They'll spend 2 minutes preparing themselves for the interaction in the station, and then 8 minutes in that station to resolve an issue, to explain a situation with someone who is in there rating that experience. So this is our second year that we're using the MMI. It's very well received by our applicants. We find it's a much fairer process. Rather than having only 2 people assess your qualifications for admission to medical school, you now have 10 people assessing your qualifications for admission to medical school, and much better results in that way. And the scenarios that you will encounter during our MMI aren't clinically related, since you're not doctors. So they're about real life situations that you may encounter day to day, and we just ask you to resolve those situations through that session. And then lastly, our admissions decisions. October 15th this year falls on a Saturday, so our medical school won't be able to make admissions offers until beginning Monday, October the 17th. We completed 7 interview days just yesterday, our 7th interview day yesterday, and so we'll be able to make admissions offers to probably close to 40 people beginning on Monday, October the 17th. And we'll continue to make decisions and notifications about wait lists as well as non-acceptances from that point on as the admissions process continues. And we will, our goal is to have admissions decisions to applicants somewhere between 30 to 45 days, if not shorter, after the interview. So we're hoping for a quicker turnaround time from interview to admission decision and to notifying the applicants. So those are the basics. I could take questions now if you want, or do you want to wait until the end? Questions about the basics? Yes?
Is that 30 to 45 days pretty standard across medical schools, or do you think that varies a lot?
The question was, is that 30 to 45 days for an interview decision standard for medical schools? And it varies from campus to campus. Yes?
Are there other schools that are using the MMI process?
Are there other schools using the MMI process? Stanford is now using it. I understand University of Oregon, UCLA, Geffen. What else? In California. UCLA, Geffen, Stanford, Davis. Yeah, those are the schools in California that I could think of. Outside of California, University of Cincinnati, I think in Arizona they're using it. There are a number of other schools that are using the MMI or moving to the MMI. We've received inquiries from other UC schools interested in our process. So I imagine probably the next 5 years, all the UC schools will be using the MMI. So, you're welcome. Other questions? Yes?
Is a recommendation letter from a physician required?
Is a letter recommendation from a physician required if and only if you've worked closely with that physician, that individual you have shadowed and has seen you in the workplace, your interaction with patients, other health team providers? Yes, it's a good source, not a required source. If you can get that, that's wonderful. We don't want a letter from the physician who just happens to be your next door neighbor and knows you since you were 5 years old. That's not a worthwhile letter. Okay? Yes?
How current does that MCAT need to be?
How current? It should be, for Davis, we'll accept MCAT scores that are up to 36 months old, 36 months to the point of application. However, But the caveat with that is that if you feel that you can improve those scores from when you last took them, then you better plan to retake them, okay? Because if they're old scores and the admissions committee says, you know, a 27, a 28, is that individual given up and said that's the best they can do? That's not going to work in favor of you. But if you can, if you retake it and improve it, then that's works in your favor. And UC Davis, we only review and consider the most current set of scores. So we don't take the best scores from multiple exams. We only take the most current scores. So if you retake the exam, the admissions committee obviously is going to be looking for improvement, and drops of 2 or more points in other sections of the exams will produce a red flag. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. So strategies, again, just to repeat myself, you know, you want to complete all the requirements no later than January 1 of the application cycle. And that varies from school to school. There's still a number of medical schools that will, you know, offer you admission, and your admission's contingent on, you know, maintaining a good academic standing and completing the requirements. UC Davis is different because over the years we have, you know, relied upon students. They'll say, oh, I'll finish the physics lab, I'll finish the other organic chemistry course, I'll finish my English course in winter and spring. And when we go to them and say, have you finished those requirements? Oh, my schedule was too difficult, I had to work, I couldn't take the class wasn't offered, so I didn't complete the requirements. So the admissions committee says no more of that. We're not going to offer you admission until you complete the requirements. Okay? So that's why we're different from other schools. Again, take the exam early, April, May, June, early August, August and September exam dates. I just think they're too late, especially for us in terms of how accelerated our admissions process is. Requesting, collecting letters of recommendations, January, the year that you're applying, or before you apply, excuse me, the year before you apply. You never know, again, as I said, we can ask for secondary application the same day we receive the application from MCAT, and if you haven't asked for your letters by that time, sometimes it takes several weeks to request letters of recommendations. So you want to make sure you have letters in your file, and letters are now sent to the MCAT letter service. So you don't send letters you don't send letters to the schools directly. They go to the letter service where the medical schools can capture the letters from that service, okay? And again, it's not necessarily, you know, who's writing the letter, and whether it's a professor or a graduate student or employer, but what's more important is the content in terms of how supportive are those individuals of your application to medical school. Again, you want to submit the MCAT early. Rolling admissions, when you do apply to medical school, remember that admissions process to medical school is very competitive, especially to the California medical schools, and we do recommend that you apply to about 18 to 25 medical schools nationwide. Returning secondary materials. At Davis, we're very strict. We give you 30 days to submit those secondary materials, to submit the essays, complete the prerequisite section, letters of recommendations, and a fee payment. Oh, I forgot. Secondary materials for Davis includes an $80 secondary application fee, and the secondary application fee will vary from school to school. So make sure you know and you note how much time you're given to complete those secondaries, because the longer you wait to complete the secondary means that the longer it takes for the admissions committee to receive that information so they can make a decision for an interview, okay? UC medical schools, in terms of secondary materials, typically will not send you a secondary application unless they have all of the information, including your MCAT scores. Some medical schools will send you a secondary application after they receive the primary application. We wait to look at the files and your MCAT scores before making those decisions, and that includes that primarily includes just the MCAT application. The interview, an early MCAT, secondary applications normally result in an early interview process. And then for admission, the decisions will be either to accept, to waitlist, or to not accept an applicant. Okay? Any questions about strategies? Yes?
In regards to acceptance, how long does one have, like if you accept me to UC Davis, how long do I have to accept my acceptance?
Okay, so the question is, once an offer of admission is made, how much time does someone who offered admission to Davis will have to make a decision? We give you 2 weeks, but that 2 weeks, just to hold the place, and then you can hold that spot as long as you want. Typically on May 15th, the American AMCAS or AAMC asked that all applicants who are holding multiple acceptances reduce that long list to 1 school or 2 schools, especially if you're making financial decisions. But it's at that point then you would release the other schools. There are some schools that will require you to place a deposit to hold a place in the class. UC schools don't do that. UC Davis doesn't do that. But it's normally 2 weeks after you receive the decision. Yes?
Sorry. Just really quickly, on the holding thing, so we, accept to hold a place and then later say we, wanted to get into a different medical school and we got into that one, then we would release.
You release it.
Okay.
You would contact us and say, I'd like to withdraw my application. Or we hope you'd withdraw your application from the other medical school and plan to attend us. That's what we really hope. Okay.
Ed, one question that frequently gets asked and is being asked now is what kinds of questions can be expected on the secondary application? And how much variance is there from one school to another in terms of what the secondary entails?
It does vary tremendously from school to school. I know one of our UC schools just asked for letters of recommendations and the supplementary fee and maybe a couple of essay questions. In the past, another UC medical school has had like 3 pages of secondary questions to respond to. Our questions are, is there anything concerning in your application that you'd like to address at this time? What have you been doing since you submitted your AMCAS application? The experience section again is, share with us what you what you determine to be the most valuable experiences leading to your decision to apply to medical school. Then we ask for the letters of recommendation along with the $80 secondary application fee. It's $80 for now. Probably it'll go up when we're able to increase those fees in the future. But it varies from campus to campus. Question? Yes.
So waitlist is like you are accepting the applicant, but there's no room for them to be offering a spot.
Well, actually 2 things. Waitlist means that the admissions committee wants to look at other applicants first because we continue to interview before we decide whether we want to offer you admission or not. Or waitlist means is that all the class is already filled and we'll have to wait until somebody drops out before we can offer you a spot.
Someone drops out, do you think they will miss some coursework by then? Or
oh, no. You have to be admitted, you have to be offered admission before classes enroll. We will never admit somebody after classes or after orientation begins. So for us, one thing that you need to know about UC Davis School of Medicine, we're the first of all the UC medical schools to begin instruction. In fact, our orientation begins at the end of July. And our instruction starts the first week of August, whereas our sister campuses start sometime in September or late August. We begin very early. What that means in terms of our curriculum is that our second year curriculum finishes earlier than most other medical schools. Our second year curriculum ends in February, whereas other medical schools end in April or sometimes in May. That gives our students time to take the USMLE Part 1 early, but more importantly, they begin their clinical rotations earlier than most medical schools. We start in April, whereas other medical schools don't start until sometime in June or July. So our medical students get their clinical experiences, their 3rd year clinical rotations earlier. Okay, all right. So data, in terms of the number of applications, we do receive around 5,000 applications. I checked yesterday and we're probably at about 4,800 applications for this year alone. Number of secondary requests, well, the admissions committee decided that they wanted to throw a bigger net out there. So we've increased our secondary applications to 2,800 this year. Interviews, pretty much we're limiting to somewhere between 400 to 500. We found over the years that you can select a fine class of students from just having 400 interviews compared to other medical schools that interview 600 up to 1,000 applicants. Okay. Offers of admission, it varies depending upon the folks who are holding. We have 105 seats in our entering class, as you can see from a couple of bullet points below. So to fill up those 105 seats, we'll offer about 180 to 225 acceptances. Waitlist offers about 100 or a little more than that, and that's where we pull those additional numbers for offers of admission to fill up our class. The mean GPA for the past couple of years have been a 3.6, 3.7. That's both total cumulative and science GPA as calculated by MCAT, not calculated by your colleges or universities. And we really do focus on the last 2 years of your college work, looking for improvement in the last 2 years of your college work. And the mean composite MCAT scores is 31. We only look at the most current scores, and your goal is to achieve scores of 10 or higher in each of the sections. So, 28, 29 mean composite MCAT scores are still a possibility. Anything below that's going to be a reach. Okay. Any questions about the data that I've shared? Pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. Okay. So frequently asked questions. I've just spent the past couple of hours before coming, or an hour and a half before coming here, answering questions on the quad. So is preference given to a major or even a minor? No. The reality at UC Davis is the majority of our students come from, have degrees in the basic sciences. But do we give preference to the basic sciences? No, that is not the case. This year in our entering class, we have a fellow that has a PhD in Romance languages and literature, but he returned to school to complete a bachelor's in biochemistry before applying to medical school. Econ, political science, international relations. We have a number of students with degrees in engineering, including biomedical engineering. We're looking for, a diverse group of students with varying academic interests, and that's usually the composition of our class every year. Is preference given to college, community college transfers, CSU, UC, and private colleges? For UC Davis, we're the northernmost University of California campus. We were established to provide MD opportunities for Northern California residents. So we are very interested in folks from our communities surrounding Davis and Sacramento. That doesn't mean that all of the seats go to students representing those communities. Is there a difference between UC San Diego or UC Berkeley? No, we were just interested in the whole application. In fact, at Davis annually, the most represented students in our entering class each year either come from Davis or from Berkeley, and then smaller numbers from the other UC campuses, and then a wide range of students representing private and independent colleges from in-state as well as out-of-state. How about community college transfers? How represented are they in the class? Actually, they're very well represented in our class. So we have a number of students who started their undergraduate careers at a 2-year school, then transferred to a 4-year school before applying to medical school. Those students are competitive as well. Is preference given to a California resident? Yes, preference is given to a California resident. We're a small state-assisted public institution, very close to the state capital. So in order for us to offer admission to somebody from Minnesota or Indiana or Seattle or Oregon, one, there needs to be some type of tie to California. Maybe they grew up here, went to high school there, then they moved away. maybe they spent the summers here at their grandparents' home. They went to high school here, went out, worked for a couple of years out of state, but they maintained their residency in California. Those are the kinds of out-of-state applicants that we'll still consider, give them California residency consideration. But residency consideration is made at the MCAT level by each applicant. And because we're a small campus and we want to serve the communities in Northern California, we are looking for, folks that are coming from our nearby communities to fill up our class. But again, we have some out of state. In fact, we only have one out of state in the first year class this year. So very little out of state students are given consideration. Applying at the end of the junior year versus senior year, my answer to that question is we're going to be here when you're ready to enter medical school. So there is no preference whether you apply at the end of the junior year versus the senior year. What is important when you're making that decision is what have you accomplished up through your junior year before you apply, compared to taking another year and applying your senior year. How strong is your application at the end of the junior year versus how much stronger will your application be at the end of the senior year? That's what you need to focus on, okay? As I tell applicants over and over again, if you feel that your application is weak in one component, any component, all the components that admissions committees are looking at, the admissions committee, when they receive your application, is going to jump on that weakness, all right? You want to submit your application when you feel that you're the most competitive and the admissions committee cannot turn you down. That's when you want to submit your application, okay? And for reapplicants, if you have to reapply, you need to make sure what are the holes in your applications, what were those weaknesses, and fix that before you apply. Again, not you're in the process of, fix it before you apply. And if it's community service, clinical experience, research, GPA, MCAT scores, if you feel that's all of some issues with your application, then you got to fix all of it, including the personal statement, including the letters of recommendations, all right? What types of activities are admissions committees looking for in an applicant? What types of activities are you interested in? What activities do you bring to the admissions process where you've had a passion for, where you feel that you've made a contribution to, that it was valuable in terms of your learning about yourself, community, society, the people you're going to serve? And how did you put that together in a personal statement, in your essays? How are you going to articulate that and explain that in your interviews? How are your letter writers written about your experiences that you've had before applying to medical school? Those are the activities that we're looking for, okay? And lastly, do you have to have research? The most recent medical school admissions requirements handbook from the AAMC reflects that about 90% of our applicants to UC Davis have research. If you don't have research, you're going to have to explain why not. And what have you done to substitute for that research? Okay. Question?
In regards to the research, I know that some students are able to, say, work with one faculty member for a continued period. Would shorter research terms with multiple faculty members be accepted?
The question is, some students are able to spend an extended period of time with one research advisor, mentor. Would it be advisable to have shorter term with multiple research mentors? Is that the question? Basically. What did you gain from that research experience, right? Were you able to produce an independent research project resulting in publications and conference presentations being with somebody a long time, or were you with somebody a long time and all you ended up doing was washing glassware, right? Were you with somebody, if you've had maybe 2 or 3, were those 2 or 3 research projects built upon that initial project? Did you grow from that experience? That's the way you need to look at the research opportunities. Okay. Yes?
When taking prerequisites, how is it weighted if you're taking one at a 4-year versus at a junior community college?
So the question is, in terms of the prerequisite, how is it weighted or looked upon taking a course at a community college versus a 4-year college? My answer to that question is if you already have a bachelor's degree from a 4-year school and you're completing the pre-med requirements, you should probably return to a 4-year school to do that. The admissions committee views coursework completed at a 4-year institution to be more rigorous than that offered at a 2-year school and to be comparable to the level of coursework you're going to encounter as a medical student. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes, in front.
How do they view coursework done at a place like the Berkeley Extension Program or like a night school type of situation?
Okay, so first and foremost, UC Davis does not accept any online correspondence distant learning classes. All courses must be in-class instruction only and for a letter grade, especially the pre-med courses. How are those courses viewed? If the courses are being, the question is about completing courses at Cal Extension. If the courses are comparable to courses taught through regular daytime classes and they satisfy college major and degree requirements, that's fine. If their course is just designed for an extension for post-bac, that could be questionable. There's a question back here.
I was going to ask about, so you're talking about taking classes at community college. If you already transferred at the, from community college to like Davis, are they still going to look down?
No, what they frown upon is going from Davis to a community college to complete the pre-med requirements. But if you did a community college first and transferred, and you did some of your pre-med requirements at a community college, then they're going to focus on your last 2 years, especially if you're a science major, and see how well you've done in the upper division advanced biology courses. That's where the focus will be. Okay? Because going back to a community college, the admissions committee is going to expect you better get that A and G Chem and O Chem. Because if you don't, then you have a problem. Anything else? Okay. So, frequently asked questions continued. What should I include in the personal statement? You know, it's your opportunity to distinguish yourself from the thousands of other people that are applying. So you want to highlight who you are as an individual and what you feel are unique attributes, experiences, what you learned about yourself, society, community, in those, 5,300, 5,000 words personal statement. It is your introduction to the admissions committee. I hear often, well, you know, I only have this much space to write. I'll wait until my interview. You're not going to get an interview if your personal statement doesn't promote you to an interview. All right? So your personal statement is key. In fact, your personal statement is key up until the end of the process when the admissions committee says, yes, I want to offer admission to this person. So they're going to look at that bit of information all throughout the process. Okay? How should I prepare for the interview? Know yourself, review your resume. You know, in terms of the MMI, go to the internet, Google MMI. There are going to be a lot of citations and information about it, about the process. You know, it'll vary from school to school. Just know what the MMI is all about and how you're going to be assessed and evaluated through that new interview process. But for the traditional process, it's, you know, just know what you've accomplished and who you are. And when you are at another medical school or at a medical school, make sure you're able to incorporate why you're interested in that particular school. How does your experiences, life experiences, interests tie into what's available to that school? So they know you've done your homework, that it just wasn't a box that I said, oh, I heard that university and so admits a lot of California residents, so I applied. All right, do some homework and find out why you, applied to that school. How is each component of the medical school application weighted? Is GPA more important than the MCAT? How important is clinical experience versus community service? At UC Davis, our admissions committee uses what's known as a holistic approach to reviewing the application. So we don't weight each component of the application. We look at the whole application. As I've been sharing with the folks out in the quad, The admissions committee looks at each of those areas, each component of your application, and see how it fits, how it gels, and how it makes sense that yes, you should be given a spot in our medical school. Yes, you should become a physician. That's the way they look at an application. Okay? So everything has to make sense. Everything that you've done up to the point of application. And I say up to the point of application because we have, several hundred, 1,000 people that are now in the admissions process that have submitted their MCAT application and they want to send updates. They want to send new grades. We don't accept updates. We don't accept grades. We make our decision based upon what you accomplished up to the time you submitted your secondary application if you've been granted one. So if you're thinking you can add more information after the application, some schools will, some schools won't. We don't. So that's why it's key to complete and accomplish as much as you can before you submit your application. I want to attend medical school in California. What are my chances? What are they? We have 8 medical schools in California, 5 UC schools, receiving 5,000 applications or more. Total of probably about 1,300 spots in those UC medical schools. And how many California residents apply? Over 4,000. You do the math. I understand that the reality is that of California residents applying to medical school, 25% stay in California, the other 75% go out of state. Find medical schools out of state. You earn your medical degree. You can come back and practice medicine after earning your medical degree in another state. Okay. So where can I get more information? That's our website for the UC Davis School of Medicine. The Association of American Medical Colleges has excellent information location. That's tomorrowsdoctors.org. The medical school admissions requirements, the MSAR, you can buy that at the local bookstore. We also had representatives outside UC Davis School of Medicine Office of Diversity and Community Engagement. That's their phone number for you have any questions or interest in diversity programs or diversity support programs. And then if you have any email questions following today, medadmissionsinfo@ucdavis.edu. I reply to those emails, so I'll be answering those questions for you. Do we have time for questions? Okay. So I'm going to open up to other questions from the audience as well as those that are following this on the internet. Yes, sir.
What would you say are some critical keys to success to breaking past that first computerized
The personal statement? Personal statement is key, and your experiences, what you've accomplished outside of the classroom. Whether just, a combination of everything, community service, clinical experience, research, life experience, work experience, the quality of those experiences and how you've described them in terms of transferable skills, how they can add to your experience as a medical student, as a physician, as a healthcare team member. That's what will break you. If your GPA and MCAT scores don't fit, then they're going to look at your experiences. What do you bring to the table? Yes?
Yeah, Ed, a question for you, since it sounds like, and this is no surprise to anybody, but experiences is so important, and students should presumably begin to have experiences, whether it's research or community involvement, as early on as possible. And so by the time a student is applying in their junior year, they may have multiple years of many, many experiences. What advice would you give to students who are freshmen and sophomores who are still relatively early in the pre-med career? How can they keep track of those experiences and be mindful of the of the value of that experience, so when it comes time to submitting the application, they can recall what they were engaged in 2-3 years ago?
One way is to probably identify potential letter writers from those experiences, people that you want to go back to later on and ask for a letter of recommendation, maybe an agency or a community resource that has other opportunities and you want to return to work in another capacity for that agency. I was talking to 2 young ladies out there, and they're, freshmen, sophomores, and starting out in their educational careers, and they're wondering, you know, I have so many interests, how do I approach this? And you know, it's baby steps. You start off small, start off with one or two. You can't do everything, including your academic schoolwork and personal life. So start with something, see how you enjoy it. If you don't like it, then move on, try something else. If you do enjoy something, then build upon it. If you enjoy working in research in neurosciences, but now you want to focus on autism, then go out there and find somebody who's doing work in autism. But build upon those experiences, what you enjoy doing, and then just, you know, put aside those that maybe it's not your cup of tea.